Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuesday Tea with me, Alisha Bowker Mudrock. Today I have Callie. Am I saying your name right? I didn't even ask.
Kaylee. It's
Kaylee, I'm
okay.
so
We
sorry.
didn't talk about it
I was like, oh
beforehand.
shit, I didn't even ask because I hate when people say my name wrong. So Kaylee
It's okay.
with us today, and she is a therapist and career coach. She works with folks who are experiencing burnout, specifically more therapists and helping professionals, and really trying to find alignment between who they are and what they do. I know from also working in hospitals and being a therapist, this is an important work that she is doing. She is a big believer in embracing your own unique story and help folks discover and rediscover what brings them joy so you can get excited to wake up and live every day, which I think we all need a little bit more of in 2024, heading into 2025. So we're so excited to have you here today, Kaylee. And thanks for agreeing to come on and just chat with us today.
Of course. I'm so excited to talk to you too, because I just think that this is such an important conversation to be having, especially around this time of year. But even as we go into 2025, I think that setting up our year with this intention can be really good.
Yes, no, definitely. So I really want to use you for the wisdom that you have.
Okay.
We have been chatting a bit this month in particular around sort of surviving, not just surviving the holidays, but thriving during this season, and maybe some ways to do that within the lens of, burnout from holidays is real, right? And like how to live at a holiday that feels aligned with your individual needs and values, even if there's a competing needs and values out there. And then maybe how to think about carrying that energy or practice into sort of the new year, as it's just a natural time we set those new goals and whatever else, but doing something that actually feels impactful and will last and is more maybe a internal shift, not just some like arbitrary things we
Right.
throw on a paper, right? So
Yeah.
I'll kind of leave you with those lots of thoughts, but
All the outline.
take
Yeah,
it
I
away.
got you. I got you. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like when you look at the holiday stress, let's tackle the burnout of holidays first, because I
Okay.
feel like especially it has to be acknowledged that all the stuff that has been going on in especially in the US, but in our world lately has exhausted us. And when we talk about burnout in general, we're talking about unchecked stress is leading to all of these other symptoms. And those symptoms can look a lot like depression. But if we're carrying all this stress all the time, and then you step into the holidays, which are naturally stressful because they increase our attention to a whole lot of things. We need to deal with the stress in healthy ways and not just like check out or try to hustle through it or things like that.
So what would you recommend are some of the ways that folks can
Slow down.
maybe
Yeah.
one though, acknowledge how can we be more aware to acknowledge some of these things
Mm-hmm.
you've brought up, and then two, like
Mm-hmm.
what can we do to when we
Yeah.
notice the stress?
So I genuinely think that we need to slow down in a lot of ways. I was just listening to, I love the podcast by Simon Sinek called A Bit of Optimism. And literally the most recent one I think was about happiness. But they talked about we are more distracted in our world today than any other time. And all the research shows that we need to be in the present and we need to slow down to reduce stress. And so one of the things that I would encourage any person to do during this time is make it really intentional that you are setting aside whatever, pick a time. I'm not going to tell you that it has to be 30 minutes, it has to be an hour. It just pick a time that feels right for you, but where you are sitting down and you are just being in that singular moment. Even, and I said I wasn't going to say a time, but even something as simple as 5 minutes of just closing your eyes and breathing is huge. And so I would challenge everybody, especially in the month of December, make it a goal to every morning for 5 minutes, you close your eyes and breathe. And just see, like, rate how your day goes and see if it makes a difference. I'm never going to tell you it has to be that, but I am going to tell you, you might as well try it and rate it, you know?
Yeah, it's not gonna hurt.
Not going to hurt.
One version of that I I've not been as good as doing lately, but I read a book by Liz Moody, 100 Ways to Change Your Life, and she talks about like setting your circadian rhythm. And so she calls it a circ walk, but I live in South Florida, and at the time it was like deathly hot, even at whatever AM time. And I was like, I'm not walking anywhere right now outside. But what I did do was sit in the backyard where I have like water, and I just put a timer on for 10 minutes, and I had my coffee, and I would maybe read a couple chapters of her book or just sit there. And that's how I started my day. And I had 10 minutes. We all have, or even 5, like we all can find that at the start or end or some part of our day. And it was a great way to practice just being present. And I noticed when I didn't do it on days, when I was really in a routine, the days I missed, like I felt it. And so to me, that was some evidence that it was actually doing something. And I probably should get back to it because it's actually colder now. So it's more pleasant to be outside.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm on the flip side. We're supposed to have a winter storm here in Michigan. So I'm like,
you're getting all the snow. You're like, I'm not going to be
outside
outside.
is a little harder
Sit
for
by
me in
a
the
window.
winter.
Yeah.
I'll just sit by a window. Yeah. I have my plants corner. I usually go
Love
over
that.
there.
I
So
love that.
but I would also like when people say I don't have that time, and I'm gonna call even myself out. I probably could do this right now. Your phone tells you, usually it has a tracking telling you how much time you're spending on various apps.
Yep.
Go look at what app you spend the most time on and ask yourself if you can spend 5 less minutes on that app in order to restore some of your own well-being,
Yes.
And I promise you, if I had to guess, it's probably Instagram for me is the highest app,
Yes.
and I can sacrifice 5 Instagram minutes for 5 minutes of breathing,
Yeah, no, 100%. So I love that idea of slowing down a bit. What else can we do when it comes to, I know what I hear a lot is like, but how can I say no to things? Or I feel guiltier, but I got to make it perfect for the kids, or like my in-laws expect this, or my family always did that. I think we sometimes get overwhelmed with the shoulds around the holidays too, and we forget, like, for everyone it can mean something different, but whatever that means, I think we sometimes even lose sight of that. So
Yeah.
I think slowing down helps because it gives us a minute to sort of reset. But if we're taking that time, how can we capitalize on the perspective shift or the distance to like make a game plan that makes everything just feel actually more happy and less stressful as we end the year?
Well, for one, I think that as people, the should, like you saying should, like I am, and I think most of us are, like as therapists, very vehemently opposed to should statements. Like many of us have adopted the phrase "don't should all over yourself" kind of thing, and I think like it, I you have to make things a choice for yourself, and they have to be a choice of, and I'm using have to, which is like a should in disguise, but um it helps you to make a choice for yourself, and that choice being what is the best option for me, for us, for my family right now. And it doesn't have to be good or bad options. It could be, you know what, the best option is for us to go and spend time with family. I have an example. I had to do this recently.
Yeah.
Where my dad is having a concert. He plays the trumpet, and
That's
he
awesome.
he was like, "Hey, can you come to my concert?"
I love that.
It's 2 hours away, and it
Ooh.
starts at 7:30 on a Monday night. And I was like, "Oh, okay. That is a probably a
lot of
5 hour
love,
time
Dad.
commitment."
Yeah.
And my kids, like, how often will they see their grandpa play, but school's still in? So I had to go through all of this, like, oh, should I? And then at the end of the day, I stopped doing that, and I went, what, when else are they going to get to hear their grandpa play? What can I do to make this be a choice? Like, I literally gave them the option. I said, here's the deal. I'm gonna ask you to take like a melatonin or something on the way home so you can sleep in the car. But it became a choice instead of a should. And I think that to me is a really important part of especially this holiday season. You don't have to do all the things,
Right.
but you can choose to do the things that feel the most valuable to you.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important part of it. And I think even like a first exercise sometimes is identifying what those things are. Because I really believe that sometimes we're on such autopilot that we're just doing. And if you ask someone, what are the things that are important to you about the holiday season, or what are the things you really want to do or are on your non-negotiable list? I don't know if people could just answer right away. And that's part of the problem, right? Because then you're just being blindly making choices led by all these other agendas that aren't your own and aren't in alignment with your values or your wants or needs, but you're so unaware of them that you're just doing. And then of course you feel burnt out. Of course you feel overwhelmed. Of course you feel resentful or pissed off or stressed and not like joyful because you're not being thought of or attending to like where you're at solo and even as like your family unit as well.
Yeah, mindfulness is so important in the process, like really truly tapping into, what am I feeling about this? What am I thinking about this? And do I need to make any adjustments to help myself and those around me? Yeah.
What do you think is like the piece of advice or a pro tip you would give folks as they're sort of thinking about starting this new year? I know that you really like focus on working with people discover that joy and figure out how to align all different areas of their lives. So what are some like baby steps that maybe people can start to think about or embody or adopt as we're coming to a natural transition change point? And we're thinking about these things, doesn't have to be the new year.
We reset. Like there are definitely like natural like calendar resets that happen in our brain, beginning of the month, beginning of the year, beginning of the week, that kind of thing.
Birthdays,
even the beginning of a day.
All that kind of stuff. So what might be some like advice or goals or challenges, you would give folks?
So goal setting is always the hard one because that's ultimately what we're talking about is this idea of how do we set goals? And I think before we even get to that place, we have to look at it's again, this kind of goes with what I was saying. We have to go with who we want to be, not what we want to do or what we want to achieve or accomplish, but instead, who do I want to be? What's the kind of person I want to be? Do I want to be a person who values my health higher than certain things? Or do I want to be a person who connects with people on a regular basis or things like that? And so it becomes a question not of what goals do I have, but when I look at myself and the person I want to become, who are they? What do they look like? And start writing out, almost like I love journaling exercises. I write out all of the ways that you want to be this person. Now, to be fair, I know that a lot of time there's a lot of conversations out there about manifesting and things like that. And I also go the sciencey route that there is some science behind when we write things out of where we want to like end up. We are activating parts of our brain that are naturally going to help us get there. So we have parts of our brain that kick in that go, oh, you're saying you want to make healthier choices in your day-to-day and you don't want to go for a walk right now, like that feels like that's not in alignment and stuff like that. And so it can be really helpful to write it out because when we write it out, it's almost like our brain, how do I say this? It's like it develops it like produces that information in multiple ways in how we see it and us thinking about it and us physically practicing the commitment. And so write out who you want to be.
I love that exercise. I recently just wrote and self-published a book called Leading Lady Energy. And one of the exercises in there is about sometimes I think that disconnect between the who we want to be and who we are now feels so big. It's hard to even maybe write about it in the first person. But if you think of, in my examples, like if you think of a woman who's living her life with leading lady energy, like what is she doing? Who is she hanging out with? Like, how does she spend her Saturdays? What does she value? And so even if if in
Like
this moment it feels,
separating.
too hard
Yeah.
to do it like about
Mhm.
me, that ideal person, the person you admire, the person that
Mhm.
embodies that spirit, like in
Mhm.
third person, like what are they doing? And as you can kind of begin to get more comfortable with that and thinking about that, that can turn into an I. But
Mhm.
I do think that idea of, like you said, the who's the person over there, not just the what, but the who
Mhm. Yeah.
is the essence of the change work, and the change work that will actually last, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a
Yep.
cliche for a reason that you set all the New Year's goals and then they are done by January
Mhm.
12th.
Yeah.
So,
3 weeks in. Yeah.
right, right.
Well, and Alicia, you know what's so beautiful about that who you want to be is that it's not the same. It's not like every single person out there writes their ideal self and it looks like Barbie,
Mhm.
like and I'm not trying to harsh on Barbie or anything, but like it doesn't. And so it's
No.
really important to know that who you are and who you want to be is unique to you. And that's so incredibly important,
Yes.
you know?
And it's beautiful. We need all the different things, right? We
Yeah.
don't want to live in a world where everyone is exactly the same, or everything is exactly the same, because then we'd be missing really vital skills and strengths and even weaknesses that we need from all the different folks
Yeah.
to make it work as a whole, society and as a whole system. And
Yeah.
it would be boring if
Yeah.
everything was the same. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to live in a world where it's all cookie cutter stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
what do you think is the hardest part about sticking? Like, so I've journaled it out, but like, what's the hardest part about getting it from the page to action, or really like continuing to believe or live with that kind of
Mm-hmm.
motivation or perspective?
So we we can't do goal setting alone.
Hmm.
I know we really want to, whether it's because we feel like it's silly, the goals that we have, we're afraid of being judged, um, or maybe we feel like we don't have anybody to go alongside us in those
Hmm.
goals, or anything. Like, I firmly believe that we cannot do things alone. And when we try to do them alone, that's where we really run into the biggest struggles.
Yeah.
So that's where, if you don't, and I guess I would go a couple of routes with this. Like, if you have people in your life, talk to them, tell them, hey, I want you to know that this is my journey for
Hmm.
2025. This is
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of who I'm aspiring to be in the year. And I have plans to kind of like work towards that person throughout the
Yeah.
year. Um, get really clear about the details, ask them to check in with you, like actually schedule. This is another kind of like goal achievement, like thing, schedule check-in times with
Mm-hmm.
them, say,
Mm-hmm.
let's check in every other Friday. And you just tell me, you just say like these things, like, how are you doing? What obstacles have you hit? What can I do to support you better?
Yeah.
And if you know that those questions are coming, you also can prep for them a little bit better.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you don't have anybody, there are so many, like, I can speak for therapists. There are so many therapist groups out there where if you put on a page, I am trying to become X, Y, or Z better person kind of
Right.
mentality. And I want to have other people come alongside me. Is there anybody else who wants to focus their goals in this way? You're going to get at least one person. You're probably going to get at least 30, depending on the group size.
Right.
But
Right.
um, we aren't alone. In fact, most people are struggling with that sense of loneliness because
Yes.
they're afraid that everybody else is connected and they aren't. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
And I
Hmm.
and I think I heard too that, so I don't know if this is actually real, because it could have been a fake headline or a real one, who knows? But
Who
we're
knows?
sort of in this like,
AI may have made it. We
yeah,
don't know
like
anymore.
sometimes I
It's
don't know. It
fine.
sounded good though, so we'll say it. That we're in this sort of like loneliness epidemic. Like, this is the
Yeah, Surgeon
loneliness
General.
we've
Yep.
been. Okay, it was real.
Yep. It is real.
The
Surgeon
was a
General
real one.
has declared it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that this is like the loneliness we've been in, I don't know, all of time, years, whatever else.
Yeah.
And I think it's because there's that facade. We're so connected because we have
Hmm.
at our fingertips, we're always
Hmm.
like touch pointing someone or something, but it's not true connection, right? And I think it goes back to that idea of just being in this moment and being present. And that's being connected to yourself here versus I could be very disconnected from myself all day, even though I'm in my body all day, right? And I could be online, I could be seeing people's pages, I could be liking things, I could be texting people, but it's still not the type of connection that I think as like true primitive, like human beings with our brains that we need. It's just not, it's not the same, right? And that's where that disconnect, where we all think, well, they have so many friends, or they have so many people, or they have so much stuff, but we're all just really hiding behind our own like digital cages and feel very disconnected and lonely. And so I wonder if maybe tying in thinking about the holiday season, thinking about the new year, is how can we also maybe choose the things that are going to bring us more intentional connection with both ourselves and others. And those are the yeses. Instead of just the stuff that you get the good photo for that people can like later, that who the fuck cares, right? Or the stuff in the new year, like what's the thing I'm going to spend my money or time on? Is that group class in a studio because I want to like see humans and I still want to work on wellness, or I'm going to invest in this mastermind thing to grow in my career, but it like puts me on a camera with people every day at least, or in person if that's an option, you know, like maybe that's another lens too of coming back to this idea of connection and how it helps us not only with our own personal goals, but with feeling less burnout, with feeling more content, with feeling true, I don't like necessarily happiness, but just true peace on some level, right?
There's actually, and I think that this was, I'm not trying to like push that podcast a lot, but I think that the podcast itself was from somebody who's been running the longest study on happiness ever. And it's at least 70 years long. I think it's closer to 80 years now that they have been studying. They had a group of men that they studied at Harvard back 80-ish years ago, and just studied like their happiness and their longevity of life. And I think there's 7 or 8 people who are still alive, but they've basically studied their families. Like when they've passed on, their families have signed on to the study too, and there's been more people added. But what they have consistently found is that it's connection that brings happiness. And so it doesn't matter, like, and then he talks about like you can have like we know there's limits to money, that there's a certain limit at which happiness doesn't change if we make more than that amount.
I would wonder if it even goes down after a certain amount.
It in a way, if there isn't connection, I believe that there's this sense of it doesn't make me happy, what's wrong with me? But connection through and through every single time shows better health, better reduction of stress, like kids grow up better, like parents are functioning better. Like I joke that in career coaching, I will die on the networking hill, but in terms of living life well, I will die on the connection hill, which I think they go hand in hand, but it's crucial.
No, 100%. And even this, like even after we connected through the TheraBundle, which more on that at another time if people don't know what it is, but it was just a bunch of therapists from all over and coaches offering their products. And even then I was like, I don't want to miss this opportunity to like get to at least talk to some of these people a little bit more. And so it's been great. I've had like 10 people I'm going to have over the next few weeks on Tuesday Tea. But it's just, it is such an important and dynamic part of being a human. We're very tribal. We weren't meant to live independently. We were meant to live in tribes and groups. And I think we've lost a lot of that. And it's showing, and we're looking for it in all these like frivolous places, right? And so I think it does go back to looking at your apps, and could you spend 5 less minutes on this game that's not bringing connection, on this app that's not bringing any connection, and find another way to find a deeper connection again with another human or with just yourself. And I can't even imagine how much just that little thing can shift or change someone's trajectory or the whole next year for them. So
yeah, my cat is looking for
connection with
right
cats.
now. It's fine.
No,
she's like connection.
I need to be in your lap. Yes. No, it's so true. Well, I love this. I love kind of where we landed with it all. I'm excited. It gives me some things to think about just entering into the new year and how to shift some thinking. What might be one last pearl of wisdom that
Yeah.
you want to drop or leave with listeners today?
I think that the last thing that I would say with all of this is, and it kind of, to me, it wraps it up, is just this idea that we've talked about, connection and intention and being present. But all of that, I think, comes together with this sense of gratitude. So we talk
Mm,
about this season being, a season of giving or a season of joy or whatever it is. And I know that that's not true for everyone. I really want to acknowledge, like, I know
yeah.
that that isn't true for everyone. But I also know that even in the midst of everything, gratitude is a consistent tool we can use as individuals to truly like sit in the moment, connect with people, and really embrace kind of the positive impacts that are going on in our life. And our
Yeah.
gratitude is not the list of, oh, I'm thankful that I got X, Y, or Z things on my Christmas list. It's, man, I'm thankful for somebody caring so deeply about me that they looked at my list and they said, "Oh, I want to do this for you." Or
Yeah.
I'm thankful for this person being in my life because without it, I wouldn't be the same. Like
Mm-hmm.
Wicked just came out and I love the For Good song because it's so much of that.
So
Like it
good.
doesn't matter how long we've known each other, there has been an impact on my life because I know you,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
So
Oh, I'm gonna cry. So good.
I love that song
So
so
good.
much. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
I've seen it twice on Broadway. One saw the
Mm,
first half in the theater. It's
mhm. Yeah.
such a good
So
message in there. But I love that I love that takeaway. I think yes, gratitude again isn't that toxic happiness.
uh,
It's just there's always something to be grateful for, even in the worst day of your whole life. There's something good, there's something to hold on to.
mhm.
And that yin and yang isn't always balanced, but they both always
Right.
need to be there. And I think we
Yeah.
spend way too much time for lots of reasons, in the negative, but holding
Mm,
space and pulling in the counter side of that too to keep us aligned and grounded is so essential. So
yeah.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate the reminder. Now, I want to give you a moment to share any offers,
Yeah.
things that folks can maybe hop onto or learn more about you or participate with. So
Yeah.
I'll send it over.
So as you mentioned, I do a lot of career coaching, but I also provide a group for therapists called the Therapist Hour, which is on Facebook. And that is a place for the therapists to connect and be human.
Love
Because
it.
sometimes we don't just want to ask the therapy things. We also just want to be like, oh, today's been hard,
Yes. Yes.
or whatever it is. And I also in January will be launching a new group called Aligned and Alive, which is not meant to be. I know there's a lot of groups out there that will be tend to be kind of like long running evergreen. This is meant to be a closed group for 8 to 10 therapists where they connect and they are part of a cohort. And this includes
Mm,
connecting with one another, finding that alignment, finding that kind of purpose again, and moving into life together, but with
mm.
intention with their business and their lives so that there's balance there again and there's joy in what they do. So that'll
I
be
love
launching in
that.
January. So I'm super excited about that. That's going to be so, so good. And I can't wait to get people in that group. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it's gonna be awesome. Well, I definitely
Mhm.
have all of those links in the
Mhm.
newsletter, so you can find them. You can get in touch with Kaylee if you have more questions about that last group. I know it was a contact you, and yeah, and then or hit reply if you need anything from me, and I'll make sure you guys get in touch. So thanks for being here, guys, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.